Hi everyone, I thought I'd do another video in my MetaTrader programming series. So if you remember last time we were doing the script and we'd set some input variables so you could set the stop loss and the take profit. And I asked you at the end, what would you do if you wanted to have an option for the user to set a risk or reward ratio or reward to risk ratio for your take profit. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is add an input so the user can optionally specify the reward to risk ratio. So set reward to risk. Okay. Now there's something you may notice is that there's a certain conflict here. If you set the take profit to true and switch this on, then you can't set this one to true as well. So it's going to be what the user should normally set one or the other. And if they end up setting both by mistake or deliberately, then one should take precedence. And when we're designing the code, we need to decide which one it is. Okay, so I'm going to set the reward to risk thing off by default. Okay, so but you can change that to however you want. But just because I've got to choose one of them. Okay, and now the reward to risk is going to be a number which isn't necessarily going to be an integer. It's what we call a floating point, or a double. In fact, it's for historic reasons they're called double because they were double the size of a normal floating point. But it means a number can be any number, like 1.5 or 1.796, whatever number you want. But it's not just an integer; it's just a whole counting number. So this is a double. It's the technical name for a floating variable. So we need a variable which I'm going to call reward to risk ratio. And we'll set that to default 2. Why not? Okay. So those are the input variables which I defined. Now at the moment they're not doing anything. So now let's just remind ourselves how the code is working. We're looping over all the orders, checking that we can select the order and that the symbol matches the symbol of the chart into which we've dropped the script. We're now firstly, by default, set the stop loss and take profit to be the existing values. And the reason for this is it's possible that the user may set both these things, one or both of these things off in terms of the set stop loss and set take profit. So if you remember, we first work out what the values currently are. Then if it's a long order, if we want to change the stop loss, then we redefine this SL variable. So instead of being what it is at the moment, we want it to be our certain number of points below the open price. And the take profit, if you remember, it's the same thing, certain number of points above the entry price. Okay, now let's do the new bit. If set reward to risk. Okay, so if the user has specified wants to set the reward to risk, then we're going to do the following. First thing, I need some space here. What I want to do first is work out what the risk is. Okay, so we're going to have a double because it's going to be a non-integer, and the reward to risk is going to be the order open price, which is the price we are going to or have already entered, minus the stop loss. Now, if you see, I've actually made a mistake here because I need to put a name for the variable. I'm going to call it risk. So the risk is the entry price minus the stop loss. Okay, so I'm going to work out what that is and put it in the variable named risk. And then I want to set my take profit is going to be the order open price plus the risk times my reward to risk ratio. Okay. Now, there's something you have to be a bit careful of here, is that it is possible that this script could be run on something which doesn't have a stop loss set, you see, because up here it gets the existing one. It might not be set, and they might not have set a stop loss. Okay, so we only want to do this if the stop loss is actually greater than 0. Okay, otherwise the calculation doesn't make sense. So in our if statement, not only do we only want to do this if the user has actually specified that they want to do it, we also only want to do it if the stop loss is greater than 0. Sorry. And remember, the logical and is 2 ampersands. and stop loss is greater than 0. Now, you have to be a bit careful when you're using floating point values, because you could technically write that. The thing about floating point values is that there's a certain rounding error. Okay, so it's possible the stop loss, which should in theory be 0 if it's unset, it might be 0.0000001 or something like that. Okay, so just to make absolutely sure, what I'm going to do is say that the stop loss is greater than the minimum price fluctuation, which, if you remember, is the point variable. Okay, so this says if the user has set the risk-reward ratio and if the stop loss is greater than the minimum price fluctuation, so in other words it has been set, then I can safely calculate the risk as being the difference between the entry price and the stop loss. And then I can work out the take profit can now be the open price plus the risk times the reward to risk ratio. Okay. Now this last bit, setting the stop loss and take profit, that doesn't need to change. And so all we need to do now is reproduce this for the short side. So just copy that, move it down here. Okay. Again, if that's all right. Now the risk now is going to be the stop loss minus the order price, since the stop loss is obviously higher. And the take profit is going to be the order entry price minus the risk times the reward to risk ratio. And that bit's the same. Okay, so let's compile it. All compiles, good. Let's try it out. Okay, so let's put on a excuse me. Let's put our sell limit order in, and then let's find our script. My second script, right. Now, by default, if I run this, it'll set the stop loss to 20 pips and the take profit to 20 pips. Now, instead of using the take profit, I'm going to switch that off, and I'll switch on the risk reward ratio, and I'm going to set this to 2, or leave it at 2. Okay, so if I do this, what you should find is that the take profit, let's go and see if it here, is now set 40 pips away. Just to prove this. So here's my entry. That's 20 pips away. That's my stop loss, and my take profit has been set to 40 pips away. Okay. So there you go. That's the script, and it's now quite versatile, because you can by changing the combinations of these, say you don't want to do a risk reward ratio, you just want to set it to your fixed amount, then you just hit OK there, and it goes back to 20 pips, 20 pips. You can it's quite a versatile way and convenient way of adjusting your orders. So I hope you find that useful. As always, if you've got any questions about anything I've done or anything else that we've covered in the programming so far, or if there's anything you'd like to see me talk about, which I haven't discussed yet, then let me know. Drop me a comment, ask any questions, and otherwise I'll see you in the next video. Okay, thanks then. Bye for now.